The Belly Up Sports NFL Draft coverage starts now with over 50 different guests over the first 3 rounds, hosted by Dan Mater. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Belly Up Sports' NFL Draft coverage. And Chris Dowhower, co-host of the MD's Fantasy Football Show and Belly Up Fantasy Live. Let's go to the pick here. Terrace Marshall finally off the board. All the NFL fantasy football and pick betting analysis you could ever need through this draft coverage. So the Detroit Lions are the ones on the clock. They're going to make their pick soon, but the Giants, I'm getting word, just traded with the Miami Dolphins from 40. It's time for your coverage to start now. Are you not entertained? We're back the second night in a row with the NFL Draft coverage on Belly Up Sports, hosted by the MD's Fantasy Football Show. We have rounds 2 and 3 tonight, commercial-free, more guests, more fantasy analysis, more pick betting props, more NFL analysis for your teams, and what it's all going to mean moving forward. We had a huge round 1. We expect to continue it on with more excitement tonight. There's a lot of big players still on that board. I'm going to be your host for the evening, Dan Mater, joined here with Chris Dowhower. We're going marathon again. Chris, are you ready? Because tonight, we're usually about like an hour to 2 hours more tonight than we did last night.
Yeah, maybe I'm hoping that they kind of speed up these, second and third round picks and kind of, speed through them. Hopefully they knew who they want on the board. I will go crazy if we have the trades that we had yesterday from the rounds about 20 or around, I should say about pick 15 on, where it just seemed to kind of just be trade. So if that happens today, we'll be here till tomorrow.
That was the big key. We had so many trades in a row in the teens, the low teens, going after wide receivers. It's going to be part of the headlines that we get into for this preview edition of rounds 2 and 3. But also joining me here today, the other co-founder. We had Mike, the co-founder of Belly Up yesterday. Now we have Blaine, the other co-founder of Belly Up Sports. Blaine, thanks so much for coming on. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Man, first day of NFL draft got me juiced today. There's my blood is flowing. This is great. You get the NFL in the springtime. And joining us now for the preview show, too, is Adam LaRue, who does the UFL football. He was with us last night. He's going to be popping on pretty much throughout the entire night, off and on. He's probably got, third right behind me and Chris as far as what his time is going to be tonight's show. So glad to have you on, Adam. You're going to be popping in and out all night.
Yep, absolutely. I'm excited. 45 to 50 and then 77 onward. So you'll be seeing quite a bit of me, especially in that third round.
Especially in that third round, which is where we really got to dig deep. That's what the second and third round's about. You're still going to find starters, but we got to dig deep in this analysis. This is where all of our preparation really comes to the full. Anybody can do anything when it comes to the first rounders. There's enough information out there. You can read a bunch of different things, but you got to take the time to actually watch the film, do your due diligence to know exactly what these players are, what they're going to look like, what their fits, more importantly, are going to be. Because we got a lot of guys out here that they fall in the right scheme, could be good, but if they fall in any other position, we might see bust across the board. And that's what we're looking at in the second and third round tonight. Still top names on the board. The biggest thing I have to take out as far as just the rookies are concerned out of last night's draft, Malik Willis was not the first quarterback taken. He is still on the board heading into today's draft. I looked ahead. I don't see him getting past Seattle. They have both picks 40 and 41. I guess the question will be, does somebody trade up in front of Seattle? What do you think, Blaine?
I mean, there's a lot of people that have the need for a quarterback, so I think it could very well possibly happen. And I know he put on his social media to let everybody know that he's still there, and he's ready to be picked within the next couple picks. So I look for him to actually move a little bit.
The other headline that we have that we can talk about as we go through this preview show, the wide receivers on the move. But my take on this is not so much just about who got traded last night, which we had big names, but the fact that teams traded up the amount that they did to get the wide receivers in this draft class. Wide receiver is now the second quarterback. If they're going to get paid $25, $30 million a year, now all of a sudden it becomes that much more vital to get these guys in the first round like you would a quarterback to get that fifth-year option and keep your salary cap prices down.
that is what we were seeing, and that was marked into yesterday's first round. But what was your takeaway, Adam?
Yeah, I think exactly that. I think what we saw that was most interesting was what happened with the Titans specifically, because they were like, we don't want to pay A.J. Brown, but we do want that type of player. That's the prototype of what we want. So they got a carbon copy of A.J. Brown, almost the same skill set. But they're like, we don't want to pay that much money. We'd rather just use assets in the one that we have and go get the same thing. So they were trying to not pay the receiver the quarterback money. Instead, let me just draft the rookie. Because again, the receivers, like you said, are getting paid almost quarterback money right now.
It's making it very, very difficult. And I'm really curious to see, as this keeps moving in this direction, how are these teams going to be able to build out rosters? It was already a hindrance if you had a superstar quarterback because of what you have to pay him now. Mahomes setting the market, Aaron Rodgers setting the market. Now you're looking at, if you have an elite quarterback, $50 million a year potentially. You have to tack on another 25 to 30 just for your number one wide receiver. Suddenly, who else gets paid? How else do you build a team around it? It's going to make things like this very interesting, especially for NFL draft time. The third one that I want to get to and dive into a little bit more will be the winners and losers from yesterday's first round. Chris, what was your biggest loser?
We talk about the receivers and guys trading up for different receivers. I don't know if my biggest loser, but one of the guys that jumps to my head is the Saints. I think the price that they paid to get Chris Olave, while I like the receiver in general, is basically a guy who's a receiver too. And you paid, a ransom basically, which you pay for usually a quarterback. Between the Eagles trade and this trade yesterday to move up, that's one of the things where this team really has, is getting older, has definitely had, talk about salary cap issues. This team's going to have some salary cap issues. And they keep pushing them off. But I look what they kind of did, and I'm kind of shocked that they won that all in. Chris Olave, he better pay it out for them.
Well, look, Saints needed a wide receiver, but is it that it was Chris Olave, or was it the fact that they traded up to 11 and passed on Jameson Williams?
It's that they passed their pick on from next year, I should say, to move up into this draft, and then flipped even more draft capital in this draft to move up into that 11 spot like you talked about. So that's a lot of draft capital for a receiver who's not even necessarily a receiver one on most people's boards. So that's where I kind of have definitely curiosity. You spent a lot of draft capital, and you're looking at what to kind of move forward. James Winston better pan out for you, and some other players better pan out for you because you just basically mortgaged your future.
Yeah, and it's something you got to take a look at. I think the soundbite, we were just talking about this before we jumped on the show, the soundbite of the draft yesterday was Sean McVay, his reaction to Cole Strange being taken by the Patriots. Like, we just watched all that tape for no reason because we thought he was going to be there at 109. Oh, our bad. That had to be the shock, I think, of the draft. Nobody had Cole Strange going in the first round. And I love the split that we're getting in the media right now. Half people are saying, this is what Bill Belichick does. He finds diamonds in the rough. Last time I checked, diamonds in the rough weren't supposed to be your first-round draft picks. That's just me. And I'm tired of giving Bill Belichick this pass because he's supposed to be this genius coach. Wake me up when he wins something without Tom Brady.
No, you make a valid point. I mean, you look at what the Patriots kind of did, and this is a team that definitely could use some top-tier talent and continues to kind of beat around the bush with that. I know a lot of people talk about him being a classic Patriot fit, but to your point, that's a lot of draft capital once again to spend on a guy that basically was a third-round draft grade for most people. He does feel a need for them. He is the kind of player they look for that kind of fits their system. But even with Josh McDaniels moved on, we don't know what that system is really going to be. So, when you look at what they kind of done, moving on from Shaq Mason basically bit them twice now because they wasted a draft pick on that, so high. And then Shaq Mason was only making about $9 million. So it wasn't like you said, guy had to move necessarily. So I think this Patriot team is definitely something you need to continue watching. And like you said, without Tom Brady, what have they done?
Well, and the Patriots tend to move out of the first round. If that was going to be your draft pick, you could have done the Patriot thing and moved completely out of the first round and still gotten Cole Strange. And that's my problem with it overall. When it comes to these drafts, it's not always about the player you take. A lot of times it's about the value you used as far as trying to win this draft and be a smart organization moving forward. That was one I came away scratching my head. And no, Bill Belichick, you do not get a pass in my book making a pick like that. The other one, I'm going to put this to the panel because there's been some split decisions on this too as far as do we think this is a bust or not. That's Jahan Dotson for me. The Commanders, they moved back in the draft. They take Jahan Dotson at 16. Now, I personally had a late second-round grade on him. I know some people did have him in the late first, but I never saw anybody who had him up that high. And I have real concerns about how his fit actually goes into a Scott Turner offense with Terry McLaurin there on the outside. You still have Curtis Samuel. You still have Diami Brown. Where's his fit? Because I got to tell you right now, to me, I had him pegged as a slot-based wide receiver. You're still paying Curtis Samuel if he's healthy. I think you're going to have a hard time keeping him off the field. I don't know. What do you think, Blaine?
I mean, you brought up a very good points, and I think that's something to be that's something to really talk about. And the fact is when I'm not really sure. Somebody can give me that a little bit of information. Is anybody coming off of contract to where he might be?
McLaurin's the one that jumps to my mind that he's going to be due for that $25-30 million deal. Right. So that could be a reason they're kind of getting a carbon copy in a lot of ways of Terry McLaurin if you kind of look at the tape.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you have to consider too, because I mean, with that deal coming up, you give him 1 year sitting behind that kind of wide receiver crew to let him develop, then just let him explode the next year. But at the same time, injuries happen in the NFL all the time, so he can fit in right away.
I mean, Adam, you're a Colts guy. Can Carson Wentz, from a fantasy standpoint, give these guys the volume they're going to need, the production they're going to need to be able to stay within our fantasy hearts? I mean, I don't think this affects Terry McLaurin too much at the end of the day, but if you're looking for other weapons, Jahan Dotson's going to be the guy everybody's going to want to talk about this summer. What's your dynasty take on him?
I do think that this is a good situation for Dotson in the long term, but as far as the short term goes, I don't think he can sustain both. Now, Wentz, I do think, is an uptick, a pretty substantial uptick for McLaurin himself. But I don't know that he can sustain both, and I don't know that he necessarily sustains the skill set that I think he's going to be deployed in Dotson, as he will be deployed in early on. Once if McLaurin moves on and Dotson starts to get used a little bit more vertically, then maybe, that can be a really good fit. But assuming that McLaurin stays the deep threat and that Dotson's used more intermediate, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be Wentz's strength. So I do have concerns there in the short term at the very least.
Those are the two that stuck out to me the most. The Cowboys. Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, the Cowboys can throw in there too. What were you going to say?
The quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers that they drafted at number 20.
The low-hanging fruit.
Maybe that's a little bit debatable for some people. It's not debatable for me. I think that was one of the worst picks you could have made at Pittsburgh Steelers. You basically have a carbon copy of the quarterback you just signed, Mitchell Trubisky, to a 2-year deal. I don't know what they're doing. If you were going to look for upside, I'm not a big Willis fan, but if you were going to look for upside or a future, then you definitely go to the right place. And if you're looking for a guy starting now, then why did you get Mr. Trubisky? So for me, I look at what the Pittsburgh did, and I just think the team really need to reload it. The offensive line, their defense has really struggled last year. That's kind of been their identity historically for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that Pickett's going to be the answer for this franchise, and I hate him in that division. Where I think when you have a cold weather teams, they're going to kind of squeeze him. We saw kind of in the combine, people try to downplay a little bit, but he threw like crap in the ring. So I think he's going to have a lot of hard times when the weather's kind of windy and different things. Those hands, while they might not matter as much as people want them to, Joe Burrow showed you can kind of throw the ball with smaller hands. It's a little bit different when you look at Pickett's tape. He has a lot of turnovers with those small hands, a lot of fumbles, and until this year, he had a lot of interceptions. So when I look at a guy who was terrible under pressure, he'd go against blitz, and people give him credit for that and say, well, he does go against blitz. It shows he can do it against pressure. But he threw off his back foot, and they showed a lot of different throws that he scrambles and panics anytime he hits anybody in his face. And I think when you look at the Steelers' offensive line, we know it's not their strength moving forward. So I think this is a horrible fit for the Steelers. So you're shaking your head, Blaine.
Go ahead, Blaine.
Yeah, I agree with that. My fantasy football chat last night was definitely blowing up because one of our buddies was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and everybody was giving him memes.
Was past tense?
So still probably going. But yeah, I think it was a horrible pick. I know Pickett was a dual threat QB, but at the same time, he's a change of pace. I don't think he fits the scheme of Pittsburgh Steelers either. So we'll see what happens.
Well, what's funny is I'm looking at my notes during the draft process, and I have him comped to Daniel Jones. That's the guy I have him with, the guy who's maybe a little sneaky, athletic to be able to use his legs to move the chains here and there, but ultimately because of the turnovers. That is why I comped to Daniel Jones, where he attacks on the field, the intermediate short part of the field. I said this to Chris last night. It was like you drafted somebody to be an old man Ben Roethlisberger, which was painful to watch, and that's basically it. That's what you want to keep with, essentially. And to go back to Chris's point about if you wanted a day one starter, why'd you draft Mr. Trubisky? That's going to be the conversation now that has to be moving forward. He's not a young rookie. He's 24 years old already. So this idea that, oh, well, a rookie quarterback can sit a year or develop or compete, there's no way in my mind that you can justify taking Kenny Pickett there and not playing him day one. And I don't know that he's better than Mr. Trubisky. Either way, I think you look at the rest of that AFC North, they may have just kept themselves at the bottom because it's a stacked division. I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. It's funny you talked about your fantasy chat, Blaine. My thought process and what I shared in my fantasy chat is that the price for Deontay has just gone up or stayed the same at the very least. Because it's going to be the exact same thing that we saw under Ben Roethlisberger. Chase Claypool, I'm sorry. Your targets are worthless. You will get none of them down the field. But Deontay, you will continue to get fed the PPR machine that you are. To me, in this draft class, I'm going to be honest with you. Chris, I agree with you that, and Malik was my QB1 just because at least he has a 1 in a million shot of being a franchise quarterback. We're bottom of the barrel here. To me, in this draft class, the quarterback to draft is the one that you can get in the third round. That's the quarterback that you want to draft.
Absolutely. All right, so let's circle back to the wide receivers on the move. We saw A.J. Brown become a Philadelphia Eagle. We saw Marquise Brown become an Arizona Cardinal. Lamar Jackson was voicing his displeasure at that today. But I don't know if Lamar Jackson should be as upset as he came off last night. I don't know, Chris. What do you think?
No, I think he this isn't something new for Lamar. When there was rumors about him getting traded to the Chiefs, Marquise Brown, that is, Lamar came out very strongly on Twitter and blasted that no way in hell, he said, basically, this is going to happen. And then yesterday, he tweeted after that trade, what the hell? What different words than that. But I think basically what you're looking at is a guy who looks at what he has. All the other receivers, all the other quarterbacks are getting more and more weapons. Zach Wilson's got, a plethora now. People are excited. Jets had to get another receiver, more weapons. Well, Lamar Jackson could use some weapons too. So he just basically traded one of his pop weapons away. Now I know Tyler, and he did put out a tweet this morning, kind of making it about. It's not about Linderbaum or his center as he called him. It's not about that guy. It's about where we just kind of moved on from. And this is part of I think part of the reason that Lamar was kind of stalling about his contract. I think he was making sure that certain guys were going to get their contract and kind of being part of the future with him. So I think this is something that kind of is definitely something he's not happy about. And I think the Ravens, while I don't hate the trade, I do think that it's obvious that Lamar didn't love it.
I don't think you should be upset, though, because it's not what the Baltimore Ravens do. They win on being more physical than everybody else. And I would get being more upset or saying Lamar Jackson's in a tough spot if they didn't already have Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews. They never really utilized Marquise Brown correctly to begin with. Go ahead.
The real question, so he went to Arizona. Arizona has a pretty good receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. They added some, they took Rondale Moore in second round last year. Why did they have to make that move to kind of keep Kyler happy? But, Lamar Jackson can make do with basically what he has. Rashad Bateman's a good receiver, but it's not twisted. He's not DeAndre Hopkins yet. So until we actually see him be a true number one, what does he really have to kind of say, yeah, I can hang my hat on? Well, Kyler Murray said, kind of complaining he'd have enough pieces to kind of throw to, and he got some extra piece to kind of play with.
Well, the answer, I think, is fairly obvious. You're talking about two completely different systems. Cliff Kingsbury's a more open, vertical, shotgun, four-receiver set type of offense. The Ravens, you're lucky if you have two receivers on the field most of the time. So it's a very different situation. So that's why I think that kind of answers itself as far as why it's not an issue and why they add somebody else. Also add this one on. DeAndre Hopkins, he may be at the point of his career where he can't stay healthy anymore. We don't know. He's been banged up the last 2 years. It doesn't seem he's going to get better. Usually doesn't get better with age on top of it. So now you have to have somebody else. When Hopkins went down last season, Cardinals had no weapons really to go to, and we're still trying to run this 3-4 wide receiver set. I don't know if Blaine or Adam want to get on this conversation.
Yeah, no, I think something to mention, kind of throw into what you're saying, is that it might be Lamar has an issue with the system. I mean, we know that's why Hollywood wanted out. So if he's mad that Hollywood's gone, then I think what he's mad about is that they chose the system over Hollywood. I think that might very well be what he's mad about, is that he wants to, have his longevity go up. He wants to be a passing quarterback, not, the Lamar Jackson that's running all the time. He doesn't want to be a quarterback that's, valuable characteristic is gone at 32. He wants to, hang around, make money until his 40s, like all of the passing quarterbacks are doing right now. So I think that could be why he's mad. He wants to transition into being more and more pass focused. They kind of did that a little bit this year, and this move to me signifies that we're going to see an offense a lot more like 2019's Ravens than we saw 2020's Ravens. Of course, 2020 was because they lost Dobbins, they lost Edwards, etc. But nonetheless, I think he liked passing more.
Well, Adam, let's play that thought process out real quick. If he does have a problem with the system, which I'm not saying you're wrong about that, his contract extension is still being negotiated. Nothing is signed right now. Does he maybe want to go somewhere else?
I think this could be a contributing factor if he does. I really think that, Chris, I think you mentioned it, he could be waiting and wanted to see, like, hey, do they do right by Hollywood and keep him? Do they keep adding weapons? Do they do, X, Y, and the other thing? I think that might be genuinely a factor he was kind of waiting to see, and I don't see him happy about this.
I do want to get to some bets before the second round kicks off because we got some pre-bets here. So the ones I have circled at the moment, I got Trey McBride over under 46.5. His over is minus 135 and his under is plus 105. That's 46.5, by the way, would basically be about the midway through the second round. So does Trey McBride, in your estimation, Blame, go in the first half of the second round today?
I think he does.
Okay.
Up.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he does. But, I mean, if we look at what happened on the first day, this is the second day, and I feel like it's going to continue that trend. So why not?
Okay. What do you think, Adam?
I don't know if I would want to lock myself into the first half. I think what's going to happen here at the top of the second is we're going to see some of the remaining defensive pieces that slipped. I think we're going to see a quarterback or two, and I think we're going to see some of that second tier of receivers, kind of them slide off here early. And what I'm most interested in this draft right now is what happens with Pickens. But again, there's a couple of the guys in that second tier that I think are all going to go in line first before we see a tight end go. Breece Hall as well could be another one that goes in line before McBride.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the draft order here. We got the Bucks, the Vikings, the Titans. The Titans are the one team that maybe really early could use a tight end. Outside of that, maybe the Giants. I don't think the Texans would. Not the Jets, not the Bears, not the Seahawks, not the Colts, not the Falcons, not the Browns, and not the Ravens. So pretty much he's got a window there of the Titans and Giants, which would be really early on, higher than really most people have him going. Or I think he winds up falling out of that. I actually have the over at minus 135. I think it's a solid bet. Put a little extra change on it. The other one I have, Chris, help me out on this one. Isaiah Spiller over under 71.5. The under is at minus 110. The over is at minus 120. So you think he's going to go before or after the beginning of the third round?
I think that he's going to go before. I think once you kind of see, as Breece Hall comes off the board and Walker comes off the board, you're going to have preferences. I think he's clearly the third running back on a lot of people's board. Even some people have him as their top running back on their board. So I think he is definitely going to be a guy that probably will be for the third round. Once you see those two guys kind of jump off, we saw the receivers, we see other positions, as Adam kind of alluded to, that once there's kind of a run on a position, it kind of puts a chain of events in the kind of move. And I think this is where you're going to see a running back or two go early, and then you're going to see like that. Who's that third guy? We talked about a lot going into this draft about there's a big drop off in our opinion for those top two guys. I think that's where you're going to see the kind of off the line corner last night. You're going to see team kind of have identified who they like and maybe jump up to go get them.
I tend to agree with you.
Real quick, it's a shame that the Jets aren't interested in McBride because I think he'd be a better fit than the receiver they added yesterday in the offense. And Tyler Conklin and Uzman aren't necessarily the answers in my book for what they do.
But they paid CJ Usama.
I mean, it's not going to happen. I agree with you. It's not going to happen. But it's a shame it's not going to happen. It's just
No, I agree. Going back to, I do have circled Isaiah Spiller on the under at minus 110. I agree with you. I think we're going to see Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker go early on here. He's the next logical back as far as what his style is. He's one of the last few three-down backs that'll be available on the board once those two come off, which is why I do think you'll wind up going earlier than early third round. The last bet I have, and this, I didn't actually bet on anything on this one, but it's part of the headline, part of the question mark. Right now, the first quarterback to be taken off today minus 450 for Malik Willis, plus 400 for Ritter. And the only reason I bring that up is because there were teams talking about liking Desmond Ritter possibly more than Malik Willis. Do we think there's any shot at a high value bet there?
I do actually.
Yeah.
I think Ritter. I think there's a lot of teams that seem to like Ritter a little bit more than Willis because I think he's more pro ready to some people. And Seattle's one of those interesting teams where I think Ritter kind of fits an MO what Pete Carroll likes more so than Willis kind of does. So I'm really curious to see when those teams kind of does stick their neck out and go at Ritter over Willis. Yesterday kind of shocked me that Pickett went before him, and I think that kind of shows maybe Willis isn't necessarily the darling that everybody thinks he is. I included because I know I had to eat some crow on that one. I'm not a fan of myself, but I was really pleased with GMs in a sense showing some restraint because all I heard rhetoric was, "Don't pass on a Josh Allen type of guy. Don't pass on a Josh Allen type of guy." And teams seem to be not necessarily sold that idea.
Well, guys, as I've been saying all draft long, if you're a part of a team that you've been upset by their draft pick, it's okay because we're giving away a Jonathan Taylor jersey here at Belly Up Sports. All you got to do is go to Twitter, follow us at Belly Up, retweet. It's pinned to the top. Register on Pristine Auction. Use the promo code BELLY. That will register you for the contest. We're going to be selecting a winner at 8 p.m. Monday, May 2nd for a Jonathan Taylor jersey giveaway. I know Adam's looking at shops for that one. Before we kick off or lay off this preview and kick off the second and third round draft, I do want to get back to Blaine. I want to get your reaction on A.J. Brown as a Philadelphia Eagle.
I mean, I was taken back on it, but I feel like the Eagles did a good thing by taking him and absorbing him that $100 million contract. He's a great talent, runs routes. He's a great pass catcher. And I knew and the Titans didn't want to hold on to him, even though Mike Vrabel verbally said, "I don't want to trade him." And look,
yeah, he looked pretty distraught in the press conference.
The pictures that are going around the internet definitely show him as like that wasn't part of my conversation. But yeah, I think the Eagles definitely put themselves on the map by making that trade because they have the weapons now in the offense to do that. So
I'm just gonna be curious to see what they do. I mean, Adam, Chris, you guys help me out on the fantasy side here. From that standpoint, as a team, it helps them. They're better today than they were yesterday. There's no doubt about that. A.J. Brown and having Devin Smith with Dallas Goedert, you got to figure out the running back situation. It could just be a committee thing anyway, but as a team, they have a lot of solid pieces in there. But from a fantasy standpoint, I don't think this changes much for A.J. Brown because you're going from one run-first situation to another. He'll be the lead receiver here like he was in Tennessee. The question for him is, can he stay healthy? But what does this do for Devin Smith, or what does this do for Jalen Hurts, Adam?
I think this is a make or break year for Hurts in a lot of ways. He's in the best opportunity possibly to succeed. They put everything they can around him. And with that, I think that makes this actually a higher upside. I'm more interested in A.J. Brown right now in Dynasty at the very least, because I think his floor it's exactly the same as it was with Tennessee. The floor is that Jalen Hurts can be close to what Ryan Tannehill was last year, and the ceiling is Hurts sucks, and they go get a Bryce Young or one of the good quarterbacks in next draft, and then we're really talking about A.J. Brown being in a more pass-heavy offense with a Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, some weapons that are going to make it really enticing to be more pass-heavy, and an offensive coordinator, a head coach rather, that we saw last year start off the season super pass-happy, figured out Jalen Hurts couldn't run that and switched it up. But nonetheless, clearly that's what that team wants to be. They have the weapons to do that. So I think if Jalen Hurts can't be that, then they will move on to another quarterback, which will be very interesting for the values of Devonta Smith and the value of A.J. Brown, again, in Dynasty.
I like it. All right, guys, it's going to shut down the preview part of this. We're just a little over a minute away from the second round kicking off and the Bucs being on the clock. Blaine, where can people follow you at on social media, and is there something you want people to know about for Belly Up Sports coming up?
We got some big things coming with Belly Up Sports Media. Stay tuned for the announcements for that. You can follow me on Twitter at 13B_train. I should probably change that because that's kind of like mid-high school kind of name right there. But yeah, you can follow me there. You can follow me on Facebook as well, my first and last name. Like I said, stay tuned. We got some big things with Belly Up Media and Belly Up Sports. Stay tuned.
I love it. And Adam, we know where to follow you. We're going to be talking to you throughout the night, so we're going to get to you real soon. Guys, we'll take a quick break, come back to the other side, get our first line of guests for the first 5 picks of the second round. Stay tuned to the NFL draft coverage here on Belly Up Sports with the MD's Fantasy Football Show. Fellas, have you started your spring cleaning yet? The carpets need cleaning, the drapes need dusting, and your lawn needs mowing. Spring has sprung, and the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming have the best tools for cleaning aisle 5 in your pants. Time to clear out your winter bush and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Manscaped has the full package you need for spring cleaning this year. The Performance Package 4.0 is the only tool you'll need to keep your boys looking and smelling like the fresh tulips your partner wants. To start off your spring cleaning, use the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 to get the most precise shave on your hedges. Did we mention it's waterproof? No need to worry about watering your grass with this tool equipped with an LED light, so you'll know it'll be a major asset to the new shower routine. Clear your holes and smell the spring air with the Weed Whacker. This nose and ear hair trimmer provided proprietary skin-safe technology which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. After clearing your nose, make sure you get rid of that foul ball smell with the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. Finish off your grooming routine with the Plow 2.0, the perfect razor for the finest shave on your face. Because if you're using the Lawnmower 4.0 on your balls and your face, you're doing it wrong, boys. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your life.
You're listening to the MD's Fantasy Football Show.
And we are back, fellas. We're back. The NFL draft coverage with Belly Up Sports, hosted by MD's Fantasy Football Show, is back and underway, and the Bucks are officially on the clock. Let's welcome in our guests here for the first 5 picks 33 through 38 here in the second round. We got Vince from the Sports Stove podcast back from last night. Vince, are you on a couple times tonight or just tonight?
Just now.
Just this one for tonight. We got Nick coming back from Scoreboard Addicts. He was on in the early part of the first round last night as well. Nick, how are we doing today?
After last night's draft, as a Jets fan, I'm doing great.
You should be. They actually had a really great draft, especially when they traded back for Jermaine Johnson there in the first round, one of the underrated moves of the entire draft. And Ryan McCarthy, we got 2 Jets fans on here. Ryan McCarthy here from No Credentials Required. How we doing, Ryan?
I am stupid tired, but I am stupid wired too, because as a Jets fan, fellow Jets fan like Nick, I'm psyched.
You guys have not had a lot to be excited about for a long time, so this is good for you. I am happy for you guys. I made the joke yesterday about, what makes you choose to be a Jets fan when you live in America and you're allowed to choose what you want. And I've always blown away by the answer. Nick gave us a great answer.
I actually have a story.
Yours?
I have a story actually as to why I picked the Jets, but I'll save it for another time.
No. Say it now. We got a little time right now.
All right, 3 words. Kermit the Frog. He was my favorite Muppet. He was the color green. It was my favorite color when I was 4 years old. The Jets wore green, therefore, that's why I'm a Jets fan.
And that's why you love the mind of a child.
There's somebody out there right now that's a fan of the New York Jets because Kevin Arnold wore a Jets jacket on the Wonder Years.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you there's somebody out there that exists like that, because I know plenty of Dolphins fans that are only Dolphins fans because of Ace Ventura.
I'm not.
That's probably valid as well.
That's a good reason. I'm not a Jets fan, but to fit in with you guys, I live just down the road from Chad Pennington. So, I fit in tonight, at least.
Okay.
So, Chris,
it's Friday, boys. I'm having a great weekend already.
That's what it's all about. We're all here to have a great weekend and entertain while we want to draft and get happy about this.
Not to brag, but I got promoted today too. So the Jets draft yesterday, I got promoted today. I'm having a great weekend.
Awesome.
Just for Nick. Congratulations. All right, Chris, the Bucs are on the clock. There's a lot of different directions they can go. This is a team that's competing for the Super Bowl. The NFC might be one of the worst conferences we've seen in a long, long time in the NFL. It's pretty much them and the Rams. Everyone else is pretty much second best when it comes to that tier. So what do they need to do here to give themselves the edge over the Rams?
I think you're looking clearly at one or two positions. You're looking defensively, in my opinion. You're looking at a pass rusher, maybe replace Pierre-Paul, or you're looking for some secondary help. We saw that team, they brought back Davis, but that team has really issues last year with the injuries that they kind of had. Definitely need to kind of continue to upgrade the secondary. You talk about facing the Rams. The Rams are locked and loaded at the receiver core. So I think that you look at what they could do is adding their corner to that arsenal.
Hard to disagree with that. And there's some decent corners still on the board, a la Andrew Booth, who I think would fit that system very well there with Todd Bowles as the new head coach. As we all know, Byron Leftwich will still be running the offense. Chris Godwin's trying to come back from a serious injury. Do we think they go another receiver just to be like, hey, Brady, give you this? So they haven't locked down that Gronk is definitively coming back to this point. So there may be a question of, do they need another weapon? What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, there's a question that could be that you could use another weapon. One of the names out there I just read about was Sky Moore. He's available. George Pickens is available. I won't be surprised if they pick a wide receiver, especially with George Pickens is coming back from an ACL injury, but so is Williams from Alabama, and it's not like it was 20 years ago where a torn ACL was a death sentence. Now you're back within a matter of months. So I could definitely see the Buccaneers picking wide receiver. Excuse me. I could also kind of see him picking a depth at offensive line as well to replace Ali Marpet. So I'll be intrigued to see what Bruce Arians does in his new role as the general manager / president.
Brian, do you think Jack Mason's not that answer for that replacement?
Could be. I mean, the two names that just kind of came out to me were Pickens and Moore, because I'm looking at SI's best available draft board, and those were the two that were out there. Christian Watson's also a possible take at 33.
Yeah, I mean, there's different directions that they could definitely go. Again, this is a Super Bowl competing team. They traded out of the first round last night. If they went offensive line, which I do think is a possibility because they are going to be aging out, I don't know if they do it this early. The top center I have would be Donovan West, but I have a third-round grade on him at the highest. If you're looking for somebody to be able to replace Jensen, we think in a year or two he might retire. He almost moved on this year. They were able to bring him back. But really, to me, the Bucs are in a situation where they have to focus on defense. Todd Bowles taking over as a head coach. The one thing they got caught by last year was that he wants to blitz, but they didn't have the corners, especially when they got injured. They're bringing Richard Sherman and every other Joe Schmo off the street they could possibly find to stick back there in the secondary. It's hard for me to believe that's not the direction that they would go in, but what's your assessment, Nick?
Honestly, I do think they need another wide receiver after losing Antonio Brown in the Jets game and actually being held down there. That was a shocker to me. Being held down by that Jets defense, which was not good, has very minimal pass rush and all that stuff. So
I feel like the Bucs were a little distracted on the sideline that day.
Possibly, but they might want to look for some more offensive line help because the Jets pass rush last year was not all that great. Their defensive backs were extremely inexperienced, and somehow, some way, Tom Brady couldn't get the ball downrange against the lowly New York Jets. So I think they need help on both sides. Cornerback is definitely not a bad place to start. And then maybe not in this round, but I was thinking about further down the trough a little bit was, do they look for a possible backup to Brady at some point, or are they going to stick with Trask to be the future of their franchise? Because right now it's kind of up in the air. I mean, Brady almost quit this year.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's a valid point as well. I'm with you where I would think if they're going to do that, I'd rather do it with their late second round pick, maybe the third round pick, even considering what the talent is in this year's draft class. But I don't think that would not be out of their thought process. I got people trying
They
to
were supposedly high on Willis coming into this draft. So, I mean, with him still being on the board, them trading back yesterday, it could be definitely that's a great
Willis would very much surprise me because he does not fit what Brian Leftwich does as far as being an offensive coordinator and the system that they're going to try to run. And being that Todd Bowles the head coach, make no mistake about it, Brian Leftwich has full control over calling that offense along with Tom Brady moving in here. But let's move on to the Bucs. So next up, we got the Vikings. That after their trade they made with the Lions yesterday, the Lions moved up.
Available, presented by Upwork, the world.
I'm not sure that was. The Lions went up and got Jamison Williams. And as a result of that, the Vikings picked up their 32nd pick and this 34th pick. Now, they drafted Lewis Sign, the safety, last night. Do they stick with the defensive side of the ball, or do they try to go and get a wide receiver? Something I think they need. I think they could use another field stretch on their side. Adam Thielen starting to age out. Justin Jefferson is better when he's able to be used inside, outside. Is it time for, let's say, Alec Pierce to come off the board? What do you think, Vince?
I'm not a huge Pierce guy personally, and I don't know that Minnesota makes sense for them to go receiver at this point either, because if you're looking at Minnesota, they're a competitive team this year. Green Bay, whatever they do at wide receiver, they're not going to be as dynamic as they were last year offensively. So this is kind of
receivers question.
Yeah, Minnesota's got an opportunity to make a run at the division this year with a stellar offense that they do have. They got to continue to build. I was surprised that they passed on Hamilton. But getting seen makes sense that they're at the later rounds. Cornerback is a desperate need for Minnesota. They're just weak there, and I would be floored if they didn't go cornerback here. Depending on what Tampa does and depending on where they have them. I like is it Gordon from Washington, Kyler Gordon from Washington, but I like Andrew Booth. I have Andrew Booth ranked ahead of Gordon. But Tampa, I mean, if they go Booth or Gordon, maybe Minnesota goes another corner. Tight end is always kind of an option there too. If you look to boost your offense a little bit, depending on how well you have McBride up there, it's always an option here at the top of the second too. So Minnesota, I think they go defense. I think that's their biggest need right now. Zimmer, as big as a defensive coach as he was, the cupboard's a little bare there. There's older players and just the opportunity to reload there for the Minnesota defense.
I tend to agree with you. I think Kyler Gordon would actually fit them really well. They need a slot guy who also plays a little bit of zone. That would be a nice fit if Booth is not there. Booth needs to be the guy if he's going. But I don't know. I have a feeling this is going to be the Bucs pick here. We're still waiting to see what they want to do. The pick is not in as of yet.
Tampa doesn't.
Good.
Sorry. Tampa, I think they make sense at corner. Obviously, you guys have talked about that. But I like those edge rushers. David Ojabo at Michigan, and I'm a big Boye Mafe guy as well at Minnesota. And Tampa just seems in the last couple of years, they've done really well with just strengthening the team. They've not really gone for need. They've gone for best player on the board. And so I think you can expect to see that still with them this year as well. So Minnesota, what's there for them is going to be the question. Hopefully they're smart enough to have two guys ready to go for whatever the pick comes.
I would think they would at this point. I'll throw another guy out there. He's not an edge rusher, but Trevor Jones, the inside defensive tackle. Defensive tackle also in need for Tampa Bay heading into this draft. I mean, what do you think about that, Chris? They should go edge rusher or go with a nose tackle?
Travis Jones is definitely one of my higher guys. There's a lot of talk about him, pairing him up with Vita Vea inside and basically blocking down the run. They lost one of their top run stoppers last year to free agency. So it's not a bad move. I also with the Rockford, for Minnesota, I think you look at defensive pressure for them as well. They don't really have a lot of pressure outside of Hunter. They could definitely, like you talked about, keeping a guy close. Bo May, the guy from Minnesota, I think could be playing really close to his backyard. Possibly, he's a great fit for that team. And then I also think you look at offensive line. They didn't renew Alex Lindstrom, their center's contract. They're not huge on some of their guards, so they could also look interior as well on offensive line.
Let's talk about Tennessee real quick because they're going to be the third pick here in the second round, and they're an interesting team to talk about now after last night's trade, obviously. So they draft Treylon Burks in the first round to try to replace A.J. Brown. So basically, best case scenario for them, they hit the reset button. We're back to, okay, what does Tennessee actually need to kick off the thing to begin with? So what's your take, Nick? If you're Tennessee, what are you doing to try to improve that team with their pick?
Jeez, honestly, I don't feel like they've gotten better at all in the offseason.
Valid.
I don't think Treylon Burks, even if he does become A.J. Brown, he isn't him today, and he probably won't be him this season, moving into the NFL, learning a new system, learning a new team, new city, and all that other stuff that goes along with moving into the bigs. And then I'm looking around, and I'm going, all right, so they're going to rely on the running game all season, and we know how that lasted for them last year, and they still have Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback. So I'm not entirely sure. I mean, what Tennessee is really banking on. I guess they're banking on being in a weak division again. Because they did go into the playoffs last year with the best record in football, but I mean, what did it get them?
Yeah,
an early exit.
They were also very banged up when they head into the postseason, but now they don't even have some of those players they had a year ago to go off of your point. If I'm Tennessee, I think you have to be looking at Ojabu. I think he fits what I'm drawing a blank on his name, what Mike Vrabel would like to be able to do on defense, because he is that type of defenseman. First of all, he got overshadowed having to play under Hutchinson. Number one, he was highly productive himself, and I think he's somebody who could play in that wide nine, that glorified linebacker, wide out defensive end. He's that type of guy in my estimation. That's the direction I would go. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, I don't hate it. The only problem I have is they just signed Brad Dupree to a big contract last year. They still have Landry. They're going to renew his contract as well.
As I'm trying to find his graphic here on the board, but Logan Hall comes off the board for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they go with a inside 3 technique penetrator to match up with Vita Vea. Let's get the reactions, Chris. We'll go to you because we had to cut you off.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick for them. I think this is going to be a guy they're going to have in their interior that's playing the 3-4 end basically for them. A guy that could definitely disrupt her. He can get the field. A guy that's going to be able to cause penetration and get a lot of single coverage with, as well with Vita Vea next to him.
That didn't take long. We got our first trade. The Green Bay Packers are on the board. The Vikings traded pick 34. The Packers traded picks 53 and 59 to move up. Could it be for a weapon? Go ahead, Chris, and then Vince.
They're going defense.
It's got to be.
Go ahead, Vince. They're going defense. Go ahead, Vince.
It's got to be a quarterback, doesn't it? I mean, they trade with the Vikings.
Willis
is surprising to me in the division.
What are the Vikings doing? They trade with two of their rivals in their division.
I thought the same thing yesterday. I was like, didn't they trade with the Lions yesterday?
They traded with the Lions yesterday, too. That's why they picked up Williams.
They're letting Green Bay sink themselves. They're like, go ahead, keep doing it. Keep taking guys who should.
Green Bay, the GM said last night, and Rodgers was talking too. I mean, the mindset is they know they got to get somebody. And from everything that Gutekunst was saying last night is they were going to make their move to get the guy they wanted. But that doesn't mean they're going up for a receiver here. Green Bay has never cared what anybody else thought, and they're going to do what they think's best for the team. I've got to think it's a receiver, though. I mean, at this point, they're trying to appease Rodgers, but who is it? I love George Pickens. Even though he's got injury concerns, he's the guy that I kind of liked in the second round. Don't think I like him at this pick in the second round, so hopefully it's not him. But they had all night to figure out who they wanted in this draft, and here in day 2, and they're going to go up and get whoever that is.
All night to figure it out, and all night of catching crap pretty much from everybody under the sun about them being the one team that did not move up with the draft capital they had to get the receiver that they wanted. Chris, what were you going to say?
I just had a quick question for the panel and their opinion about George Pickens. There's a lot of talk about him coming off major injury. He did play last year. He did play. So I'm kind of curious that he didn't play well last year, but he did play. And that's kind of where I'm kind of curious to see, do people think it's because he's going to have more time to recover that he'll be this explosive guy that he was a couple of years ago? Or did the tape basically, to me, kind of showed you that he might not be that guy again, and we're kind of hoping for something that might not materialize?
Well, I'll hop on that point real quick. It's just George Pickens has not been productive since his freshman year, and it's not just because of injury. But go ahead, Vince.
I mean, Derek Stingley hasn't been productive either, but he's not Derek Stingley. Also, I'm going to be careful to over-compare there. I think it's hope. I think you said the right word, Chris. It's hope. You saw what he could be, and you're hoping that it's still in there and that your coaching staff can get it out of him.
I don't disagree with that. I think it is banking on him to heal up and then be available maybe later in the year to make an impact. Either make an impact or just get some reps in and just it makes some sort of difference for whoever picks him.
I love that we get these trades in. They say the pick is in, and they take forever to announce the pick.
So, ironically enough, yesterday you were about 30 seconds ahead of my NFL network. I've already got the pick.
Oh, I got it now.
Okay.
Go with the freak of nature in Christian Watson. They trade up to get that guy, 6'4", 208 out of North Dakota I had him going in the third round. Don't get me wrong. Great speed size combination. This guy's going to have big plays written all over him, but he is a bit of a raw guy who played against lesser competition. Vince, you're the Packer fan on the panel, so I want to get your reaction first.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge Christian Watson guy, but my dad, again, a minority owner of the Green Bay Packers, is a big fan of Christian Watson. He's going to be incredibly excited about this. He seems to be more of the replacement for Marquez Valdes-Scantling than for Devontae Adams. He has that same kind of stretch the field possibilities, get behind guys. My deal with MVS was he couldn't catch the ball, and so hopefully Watson can catch the ball better than him. Any receiver with Aaron Rodgers is going to have an opportunity to be really, really good. So as long as he can gain the trust of Rodgers early, it's going to benefit both of them. So I have a little bit of optimism here, but he's not my favorite receiver at this point.
Well, Chris, let's flip this on the other side. Let's forget about the Packers' impact for a minute and talk about it from a fantasy football standpoint. Christian Watson comes in. They have Sammy Watkins and not a whole lot else. There's a real pathway here that Watson now, his dynasty value just shot through the roof. You're going to be going up with Aaron Rodgers, and you could arguably be the number one target on this team, especially will be the number one deep threat too. But what do you think about Watson's fantasy value now?
I think it has to be something you're definitely keeping on your radar. Not only is he going to be a deep threat, he's probably their best red zone guy outside of Tanya moving on right now. So when you look at who's going to be that guy to look for in the red zone, he probably could be that guy with a 6'4" body. I'm not as high on him going this high, but I do think that one thing that people kind of knocked him for was, him being not a great route runner and kind of really raw. They didn't put up a lot in his school for what he played, but when he went to the Senior Bowl, he did shine really well, and he impressed a lot of people with his ability to get off coverage and get some of these top corners that were traded up for, and people really liked. So he was able to kind of get separation from these guys. He was able to show he had a good route running tree. I think he's a little raw, so I think you're going to kind of, your temporary expectations where he's not going to come out there and be Jamar Chase, week one or anything like that.
They are not on the board yet, but the Giants did just trade their pick 36 to the Jets. The Jets traded pick 38 and 146. So they're
Trader Joe's is always open. Trader Joe's is always open.
Basically, they swapped around two spots there. So you're still getting the Jets and Giants picks within this segment. Chris, finish your thought there.
Yeah, so I think I said, this isn't a guy that's going to come out and
Jamar Chase. Don't finish your thought. the Titans selected cornerback Roger Mccreery. He is off the board now, getting his graphic up here. So they do go corner. They go back to the secondary. That's something they've addressed now for the past couple of seasons. So, Chris, I'm going to let you actually finish the thought here. Give me your reaction to Roger Mccreery.
A good player. Reminds me a lot of McDuffie in a lot of ways. I know people are higher McDuffie than I necessarily, but this guy's a very good player. He has great technique. He's a guy that coaches really gravitated towards during the whole scouting process because he does what he's told to do. He's got a decent ball skills a little bit. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to have a whole lot of turnovers in his career, but a guy who can be definitely serviceable for you. Kind of reminds me of the guy Nelson, played for the Eagles last year, and a guy who's going to be somebody who's a solid corner probably for the next 8 to 10 years.
All right, so the Jets will be on the clock momentarily after moving up with the Giants to pick 36. All right, Jets fans, let's start with Nick. Nick, what do you think you traded up for just now?
Nakobe Dean. I think the Jets just traded up to get Nakobe Dean because with yesterday getting Double J yesterday, I think that moves JFM to the inside. He'll play more inside technique with Quinnen Williams, and they'll bookend those guys with Carl Lawson and Double J. They picked up a corner yesterday. The only other option I can see them possibly going for, but this is kind of high for it, would be Breece Hall. I know they like Tevin Coleman a lot, though, so that would take reps away from him. He did a good job for us down the stretch when Michael Carter was injured. Whoever they pick up is going to be a backup to Michael Carter. He's going to get the bulk of the carries there, and I don't think they're going to pick up somebody that's not going to start on day one in the second, this early in the second round, especially after trading up. I think Nakobe Dean, though injured slightly, he's an upgrade to our current linebackers. I'm a huge Florida State fan, but I don't think Hamza Nasruddin is in a position to move up and play that linebacker position at a full time. And I honestly would consider moving him back.
I can't believe it. They went Breece Hall. The Jets moved up and took Breece Hall.
Man.
And that is a shock to me. So go ahead, Nick, finish your thought. What were you saying?
That was my second guy. I was like, all right, Nakobe Dean, they got Breece Hall. I guess I think honestly they just do this on purpose to confuse people. Last year it was 25 Michael Carters and 11 Elijahs. This year it's going to be Breece Hall, Bryce Huff, and Bryce Hall.
Ryan, come on, man. What's your reaction? They trade up, get a running back. They've had 4 picks now in the last 35, 36 picks overall. This time they're going with a running back after they kind of addressed the issue both in the offseason and last year's draft.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a depth thing with Tevin Coleman being signed to the 1-year contract, 1-year, $1 million contract. He'll be there for next year, but I think this is a depth pick. I would have been happier with Nakobe Dean or even Travis Jones. I would have liked to have him as a run stuffer in the middle of that defense. But yeah, this is definitely for depth. I believe I had him going running back later in the draft, but I didn't think it was going to be this soon. They must have saw something in him that they really, really liked, and that could fit in Mike LaFleur's offense. So I think this is mostly a draft.
Well, I'll
this
say
is
right
mostly a depth move.
Well, he ain't a depth move. This is your starting running back moving forward. It's not a depth move as far as that concerned. If anything, the depth is now going to be Michael Carter. You don't move up to the high end second round, take the number 1 running back off of everybody's board for him to be the backup. The question I'm going to have now, and I'm going to talk with Chris about this. This is while the system is the correct fit for Breece Hall, the zone system. I hate this for so many different reasons. Especially starting with the fact that I love Michael Carter, number 1. So now all of a sudden he's going to get, trashed and go down he's basically a handcuff now at this point because Breece Hall is a 3-down back. And one thing that we talked about in our shows a lot leading up, he's a 3-down running back. He's a rookie running back who's going to play right away because he can actually pass protect for a rookie running back, which is number 1 key that you have to be able to do to get on the field. So what's your fantasy value take? He was my 101 in Dynasty. Now I'm going to have to question it.
Yeah, I'm a Michael Carter fan. I love Michael Carter. This is my biggest fear coming into this draft, in a sense, was that Breece Hall would wind up a Jet. As Nick was kind of talking about Breece Hall and people were kind of blowing it off, I kept thinking to myself, why? This makes all the sense in the world in the sense the Jets are emulating the 49ers. They took Trey Sermon last year and didn't necessarily use him. But also the Packers had Aaron Jones, and still took A.J. Dillon in the second round. So when we look at the kind of the tree under the Shanahan system, this seems to be what they think they need to do. I don't think it's a depth move as you talked about. I think he's definitely here to play. I hate it for Michael Carter's purposes moving forward. My question is going to be, will they kind of commit to a role for these guys where, Michael Carter might be a guy that they kind of use in the key situations like A.J. Dillon in a different way. A.J. Dillon's being more the physical guy, but he had a clear role for Green Bay. Or is it going to be, Breece Hall and we'll throw you in here once in a while? So that's where I think you're going to kind of pay attention to coming out of, camp. Is there kind of splitting carries in the backfield? Is it going to actually be a tandem? We did see last year that they did really want to have a tandem as much as possible, even 3 running backs a lot of times. I think Tevin Coleman, I'm sorry, Nick, I didn't watch the same thing you watched last year. I think Tevin Coleman's has been done for the last 2 years. So I think that's definitely an upgrade. It's definitely an upgrade over Johnson. But they were playing Ty Johnson. They were playing Mccreery. They were playing Tevin Coleman. They were playing any guy they could with Michael Carter as much as they could. So this, to me, doesn't surprise me. It does suck fantasy-wise, though.
It makes me sad for Breece Hall because I can't necessarily trust he's going to get more than 15 touches because we go back to that system. The lead running back doesn't usually get more than 15 touches in the game. And Breece Hall, the one thing about him coming into this, again, being a 3-down back, he has the build to be a workhorse. That was going to be his big top role. And I'm just sad to see that he might not be in that kind of situation. But does this make the Jets better from a football standpoint, Vince?
I think it does. I think, again, just like Chris mentioned, if you look at what Green Bay's done with Dillon and Jones, same system.
The Giants apparently just want to keep trading on back. They just traded their pick 38 and back to the Falcons. The Falcons just moved up. They gave up their pick 43 and 114 and move up 5 spots to take that Giants pick. So we'll have the Falcons there at 38. But Vince, go ahead and finish your thought.
Maybe Malik Willis going off the board soon. I think I like what the Jets are doing. I love the Jets draft so far. I think it's a good overall thing. I have Carter in a dynasty league, so that hurts. But outside of, and I went with him over Williams in Denver as my selection for that pick. So that one hurts definitely. But if I'm not a Jets fan, you guys are, but I think it's a positive thing for real football for the Jets.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, it's you need help on that offense in general. You need stability. And for that offense to work, the running game has to work. And while I love Michael Carter, that offensive line has been suspect for some time, especially when he gets injured, which has been doing a lot of over the past couple of years. You need a guy like Breece Hall who is powerful enough to sometimes just stick his head down and pick up 3 yards by falling forward because he can, just to keep the chains moving a little bit. I think that's something he'll be able to do. The pick is in for the Houston Texans, though. And it is the cornerback, Jalen Petrie. Trying to pull him up here. Here we go. He's off the board. This is a guy coming in, was revered as a tweener type guy, a nickel corner, a safety. He doesn't have the ball skills of somebody who he's been compared to, which is Antoine Winfield. He doesn't have the same type of ball skills in that sense, but he can do a little bit of both. So here he comes off with the Houston Texans. I think he's definitely a Lovie Smith pick. But where are you at with him, Ryan?
Yeah, he's he's definitely a Lovie Smith pick. I think Lovie Smith is trying to do as much as he can with for this defense, and having more help in the secondary always helps especially against quarterbacks like Matt Ryan or and playing the AFC altogether. You got all those receivers out there, so yeah, I think any kind of depth helps for the Texans at secondary, and this definitely for sure is a Lovie Smith pick. But I'm not. It's not a bad pick. He gets to stay home in Texas, so hey, good on him. This was a situation I think they still need to get their premier corners in order, and I don't know if they're really in a situation to be going after cute tweener guys, which is what I think Petrie is at the end of the day. But I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
I don't see the same kind of thing. I actually don't. I think he's more of a cover corner, and this is kind of surprising to me because so is Stingley. And these are two guys that don't really match the system necessarily for a cover 2, cover 3 defensive coordinator in Lovie Smith. So I'm kind of curious because neither guy shows you great film tackling, and that's where you're going to need to kind of be good at usually playing this kind of defense. So it's a little bit odd. Definitely guys who are better, than they had for sure. Definitely guys who can kind of shut you down. People talk about the division and some of the receivers you have to face. I think it's definitely an upgrade. But I'm kind of surprised because it doesn't necessarily fit my belief of their system kind of is that they have in place right now.
I agree with that. He's not a good tackler. He's not a great cover 2 guy. He's willing to do it, but we watch him on tape. He doesn't bring his body, doesn't bring his hips through. It's a lot of arm tackling for a guy who's only 198 pounds, which is what makes me surprised when you go with a Lovie Smith system where when you play that cover 2, your cornerbacks, they need to tackle. And that's, to go to your point, Derek Stingley. That's not his big MO either. He's more of a pure cover corner as well. So interesting to see. Maybe they're looking to run something different. I got to think this is a very obvious pick here for the Atlanta Falcons. I think we're going to see Malik Willis off the board here in just a few moments. I would have to imagine for them trading up to this spot there. But after them comes Chicago. Chicago is going to finally have their first pick of the day. So, Nick, I want you to tell me, if you're Chicago, what direction they have to go in finally getting their name on the board.
You got to go something offense. You have to build. And my concern with the same thing with the Jets, having a young quarterback, the same thing with Trevor Lawrence, the same thing with Zach Wilson, the same thing with Justin Fields. You have to have something out there for him to go to consistently to take the pressure off his back. So they either need to build up their offensive line because he was running around a lot last year, or they need to get him some assets to throw to, or somebody to hand the ball off to on a consistent basis. Or check down to, because he's got to do something. Far too often last year was he walking around with a loaf of bread in his arm looking for something to do with the football. Because, I mean, you just can't have that. And it's not how you build a future for your franchise when you have a brand new young quarterback moving into the league. You have to have a solid foundation for him to rely on.
In a copycat league, how is everybody not copying Cincinnati? I mean, they went out and got Jamar Chase last year. They have 3 number 1 receivers on that team, in my opinion. And Chicago has to get weapons. New York has to get weapons for these young quarterbacks. It's got to happen. I don't know if there's a weapon here for Chicago, though. That's going to be that. I mean, if they draft a receiver now, they'll be better than their current wide receiver group, which is EQ St. Brown, Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't feel Jacksonville did enough for Trevor Lawrence either. They signed a lot of mid receivers to big contracts, and I'm just sitting there going, really? That guy, he is not worth that.
Christian Kirk is the truth, man. At least that's what his contract says anyway.
Jeez.
$20 million for a mid-level guy.
All I know is that Trent Baalke just ruined every team. He ruined the 49ers, the Titans, and a few other teams that their wide receivers are looking for max deals now, like bigger than 50, 25, 35, $45 million a year.
Yeah,
who knew Trent Baalke gave that contract out?
Yeah, who knew the wide receiver market was going to be reset by Christian Kirk?
Well, he's the one who's ruining everything because now all these guys look and say, like, well, if he got $20 million, why shouldn't I get $30 million? And again, that goes back to I think that's going to be the big historic moment now for the NFL. You have to get these wide receivers. They think are going to be your number one guys right there at that contract level. Otherwise, you get left out of it. And that's plain and simple. That's what's so insane about it.
Ooh, Atlanta's pick is spicy.
Yeah. I love that they took forever too. They have like 50,000 people to make this like selection and call out the name for us and everything like that. It is absolutely insane. I don't even know who, this is.
Mccarthy.
So they go defensive end. I thought they were gonna pick Malik Willis for sure, but they go.
I want to say he was like 7th on the edge rusher list, something like that, somewhere after Mafe, which I'm surprised he went before him.
I love Ebiketie. I think he's lower on the rankings, but he's one of those guys that whoever got him, I think, was going to come out with a really solid player. I love what he can bring to this team. Little surprised they trade up for him, but I like the player.
Yeah,
sneaky pick for sure.
So here's my analysis that I have on Ebiketie. I know I'm butchering that name, but forgive me for that one. So the one thing I do like about him quite a bit is that for a guy coming out of college, and this seems to be an issue for a lot of guys, he actually has a couple of pass moves in his repertoire to be able to go to. There's not as much development on that side of it, like a lot of these guys come out, which they just kind of they rely on their raw athletic ability and don't have fine-tuned actual moves that you need to be able to be successful at the NFL level. However, on the other side of that, this guy, you run at him, it's all over. And it's like they wanted to take a replacement for Vic Beasley. This does not help them at all because you can neutralize him too easily. He has to get stronger the lower half of his body because he's a guy that is a candidate to get chipped by a tight end. Too many times does he get washed inside when that happens. I don't like this pick. I don't think he should have belonged any higher than the late 3rd round. I don't know. That's just me. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's kind of pick your, what your preference is when it's some of the defensive ends. I know maybe he's still on the board, but I think this guy kind of reminds me of a guy that can basically do a little bit of everything. Talk about the edge rush that you're looking for. A guy that definitely can get off the edge, has multiple moves. It's not a guy that I think you needed to reach for, but I think does have a potential spot for him to kind of be productive in this team because a guy who could easily get double digit sacks, I should say. I agree with Vince. This is a guy that I definitely like to take more. I think he's got some room to continue to grow, but he reminds me a lot of Ojobu, the guy from Michigan. I butchered that name too. But I think that you look at the guy from Michigan, they have similar skill sets in some ways. Now, I think the Michigan kid was definitely better against the run, to your point, but I think this guy's healthy and he can play right now. So I think it's probably what you're looking at.
The Bears didn't waste too much time with their pick. They are taking Kyler Gordon. But with that, I got to kick you guys off here and get our next round of guests in. So, Ryan, tell everybody where to follow you at. What do you got coming up next on your show?
All right. So, personally for me, I am at WhoIsRyanMCC on Twitter. You can follow me there. My podcast, No Credentials Required. Didn't have an episode this week because all the draft stuff I'm doing. But next week I might think about doing a Jets roundup for the draft. So stay tuned for that. I might have my buddies Kyle and Dan back to talk Jets. And Nick, if you want to come on the pod too, you're more than welcome to, buddy.
We'll talk, buddy.
All right, definitely.
Nick, where we can follow you at, bud?
With the Scoreboard Addicts podcast, you can find me with my buddies Rook and TJ and our intern Stat Guy Sal on Wednesdays. Usually about 9 o'clock, we go live on YouTube. You can catch us on Belly Up Sports Network or on Tuesdays and on Saturdays, and at Twitter and TikTok with at Score Addicts Pod. And we also have some great things like WWE trivia on Wednesdays, and we also do Does Gen Z Know with our intern, where us millennials ask the Gen Z if he knows anything about the 90s and 80s.
All right. I love it. I love it. And Vince, where can we follow you and what do you have coming up next?
Yeah, social media at Sports Stove, Twitter and Instagram. Sports Stove Podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts. Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes drop on Belly Up TV as well. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m., 2 p.m. And then Sunday nights at 8 p.m. live on Belly Up TV, co-host of the Belly Up Fantasy Baseball Show, talking all kinds of baseball stuff too. So, Dan, thanks for Chris as well. Both of you guys doing a great job.
Thanks, Dan,
thanks for letting us jump on.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate you coming on. Guys, we'll be back. We're going to take a quick break. We got a next few guests coming up for the next 5 picks, so everybody stay tuned to the NFL draft coverage here with Belly Up Sports and the MD's Fantasy Football Show.
Do you have trouble waking up in the morning? Well, not anymore, because Invader Coffee is here to make you look forward to that morning sunshine. Rated one of the best, smoothest tasting coffees on the market today. Originating out of Texas, this rare coffee product is able to reach new heights in quality from its air roasting process, creating coffee beans with the most robust and smooth flavor you will ever find. So make your mornings more enjoyable by going to invadercoffee.com and use the promo code BELLYUP for 15% off your next purchase. Again, that is promo code BELLYUP for 15% off of your Invader Coffee purchase today at invadercoffee.com.
You're listening to the MD's Fantasy Football Show.
All right, we're back, everybody, with the NFL draft coverage here with Belly Up Sports and the MD's Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host all evening, Dan Mater, joined with Chris Dowhower. We're still going strong through the first couple of rounds. Joining us now, we have Kevin Wilson, one of our top senior fantasy football writers here at Belly Up Sports, and we have Andrew coming back from yesterday with Divots and Pivots. And we got the next 5 picks to talk about. Gentlemen, Kevin, you're a Seattle fan. You guys are now on the clock. What are you feeling, man?
You know, Dan, I couldn't think this draft could work out any better for the Seahawks because, you know, they didn't take the quarterback in the first round. I was absolutely petrified that's what they were going to do. They did not do that. And now they've got the next 2 picks. And so Malik Willis is coming to Seattle. You can bank that right now.
I thought that's why Atlanta was trading up to go get him, but no. And so they trade up for a defensive end that kind of had all of us kind of stunned that they needed to trade up for that particular defensive end instead. So, yeah, you guys might get your wish now in just a moment. Andrew, how you feeling today?
I'm good. I've recovered from the fallout of the Patriots and just buffoonery last night. They have an opportunity to salvage it here today, though. We'll see what they do. But
I just want to know, are you going to get a picture of Sean McVay laughing in the background on your social media? That's all I want to know.
We wasted our time studying him, thinking we could get him at 109. Like that should be like the memoir title of Bill Belichick right there. Like that, he just messes everything. Makes no sense and messes everyone up.
All right, Kevin. Well, I know you want one of these picks to be Malik Willis, but you have, like you said, you have 2 right now. So what's the other option that you would want them to attack?
Well, they've addressed the offensive line. If they go Malik Willis, their other big weakness is cornerback, which I've got Andrew Booth out of Clemson at the top of my draft board as far as cornerbacks are concerned. If they don't do that, then they got Jakeem Brisker. I believe that's how you pronounce that, out of Penn State. And so I know the Seahawks have been known to, take these names from, the clear blue sky, but they definitely need to address their secondary. So one of these 2 picks have to be one of those guys.
Well, Booth, that's a name that we've been talking about quite a bit on this show throughout the entire coverage.
I like him a lot. I'm surprised he's not off the board already.
Going back to yesterday, I thought this was somebody that was going to go in the late first round potentially, and he's still sitting out there. And that's what's shocking to me. What do you think? Why is Booth falling, Chris?
I think that one of the questions coming out of his is some of his technique. The guy can be a little stiff, doesn't turn his hips the greatest. Kind of a system fit in some ways, probably better served for playing a zone than he is man-to-man. So I think when you're kind of looking at a guy that has some questions, I'm a little surprised some other guys who've gone over him, but Kyler Ward, for example, is a guy who's an athletic freak, a guy who's still has his best potential ahead of him in some ways. Booth, I think, is the guy who a lot of people expected him to be better than he was this year. He's probably kind of suffering from that hype beginning this season and not kind of necessarily matching it. Sometimes it happens to some players. You see that where the guys, become values in a sense because guys hype them. They don't have that great senior season or a great junior year, and then they still are good players. So he could still be a guy who could definitely, recover in the right spot.
I'll say this about Booth and talk about him in Seattle. To me, I had him in my analysis pegged as the perfect cover 3 type of corner. So he definitely would fit what Seattle would like to do. We're still waiting on the official word for this next pick here. After Seattle's done going the next 2 times comes the Indianapolis Colts. This will be their first pick of the draft. Another team that frankly could use a wide receiver on the outside, especially a speedster type guy. So Chris, I'm going to go back to you on this one. Is that the direction they should go, or should they look elsewhere?
I'll go 2 other places. I would love them to take a receiver because they absolutely need it, but I also think they need a tight end. I like Mccreery, we talked about where he can kind of go. I think he'd be a classic fit for their offense and really be Matt Ryan's kind of best friend as a security blanket. And I'll throw one more out there. My boy's still on the board, Dave Fioli. This team really struggled with the left tackle position the last couple of years. And this could be a guy who would be that kind of cornerstone. We know that the Colts have built through the offensive line, previous, and this could be a guy I think could just be the kind of icing on the cake if they were actually to take him.
So the Seahawks go pass rusher. Boye Mafe off the board, going with back to the defensive end. A good pick. This is somebody who I had in the late first round, early second round territories, about where he was going anyway. And he's a solid edge rusher. They do need pass rush amongst many other things as they continue to rebuild. I wonder now though, is it going to be Malik Willis if they decided not to take him here? Not that it matters, he's still on the board, but maybe not if they decide not to get him with the first of their second round picks. I don't know. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I've got I had him as number 2 on my board as far as defensive lineman. I've got Travis Jones over him, but I don't see that as being a big need for the Seahawks. So that to me is a reach right here. And so I guess I'll be, maybe I'll go yay later on, but right now I am not cheering for this pick at all.
Is anybody going to help out Kevin feel better about this pick?
I think you should, Kevin. I think that, you talked about not necessarily need. Seattle's definitely not had the same kind of pressure up front they've had, when they were actually really one of the legit top defenses. They've got different guys they've thrown out there. They kind of manufacture a pass rush, but they don't have a guy that's kind of the stud. This guy's definitely a hustler. He's going to give it all effort. Definitely going to be a good edge rusher. Now, my question would be, can he stop the run? That's kind of why I would see him as an edge rusher because I don't think he's really good against the run. He can run right at this guy. But in this system, he does fit the kind of Pete Carroll likes. He can kind of play that hybrid end / outside linebacker position and kind of be that pass rusher guy. So I do think that's something that he could definitely upgrade. One of the better ways you can help cover is when you get pass rush.
All right, Chris, I'll take your word for that because at least he's somebody I had on my board. So at least we got that going on.
This was
waiting for confirmation, but I think the pick is it. They're not going quarterback. They are going back to running back. They are taking Kenneth Walker. Seattle. So we need all the running backs. We need Rashad Penny. I mean, look, this is clearly in case Chris Carson, or I can't even say in case now. It doesn't really matter if Chris Carson comes back at this point. You just spent a high second-round pick on a running back. And they said, I want Drew Lock and I want Geno Smith, and that's going to be my quarterback competition. Darn it, Pete Carroll and his old man ways. That's fantastic.
Kevin, do we need to send help to your house, man?
Yeah, you might want to send out a couple. I'm shooting at my flare right now.
Face just
there goes the flare.
At that pick, like what?
So look, I'm not surprised they went running back here because I thought this was going to be a spot where Breece Hall was going to fall to them after the way the first round rolled out. So I thought they were going to go running. I'm not surprised they went running back, but after they did it, Malik Willis was there. I'm more shocked now that they didn't take him with one of those 2 picks.
Well, Malik Willis.
Maybe there's something going on with Malik Willis that none of us realize because no one's taking him.
Bo Callahan is flying down the board. I just think it's interesting going with Ken Walker. I mean, if it wasn't an indication that Seattle was going to be like 75% run before this pick, it definitely is now.
Yeah, 80%.
80, that's right. 80, another notch, another 5%. Look, I want to talk about Kenneth Walker, though, because I had Breece Hall as my number one, but I actually had Kenneth Walker very closely rated. He's not the same type of guy as a Breece Hall. He's going to have to learn how to pass protect before he gets on the field on a consistent basis. But as far as just pure explosive runners, he was my number one guy when it comes to that in this year's draft class. I really love him as a home run hitter. Rashad Penny, there's no guarantee you're going to bring him back after this year. Like I said, Chris Carson, a neck injury, there's no guarantee that he can continue to really play football at the same level. We have to see exactly how he's going to come back. So Kenneth Walker, they're making sure they have their running game going because we know that their quarterback situation is going to be hysterical. Chris, you've been shaking your head this entire time. I gotta get some comments out of you.
I try to defend the bow for Kevin. Kevin, I don't even know how to rationalize this. Yes, Dan, you're absolutely right. This guy's definitely explosive. A running back that was definitely second down the board in my book too as well. A guy that you doesn't necessarily wouldn't hate going here. It's hate going to Seattle with so many holes in the team that they have. Even if he didn't take Willis, which I think is the reason that they were keeping, that second pick was to kind of see this man able to jump up to go get Willis, and they were kind of keeping it. Can we get some kind of value for this pick if we don't move down? But taking Walker there with all the holes that team has, it just makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense to me either, Chris, because they've got needs at big time at cornerback, and Chris Carson, we knew there was something, with his neck, and maybe he was never going to play again. This pretty much confirms that to me. So,
well, the problem I have is, you also lost Bobby Wagner, so you can do some low linebackers, but
correct.
Dan just kind of hit on the nail on the head for me. This guy's not a third down running back, so you're going to have to platoon him with somebody else. So you're basically just saying we wasted our second round pick with a guy we wasted our first round pick on 2 or 3 years ago with Rashad Penny, and then add that you probably have DJ Dallas still there. This team, A.J. Pearson at some point, they don't really need a stud running back necessarily for their offense to kind of function running wise. What they needed is a guy that actually could block or tackle people on the other side. So I am really down on this pick for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Chris. And Andrew, we talked on our show last week about how Atlanta wasn't going to take a quarterback because they're going to punt the next year. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks are doing the exact same thing.
Maybe. I think it's got to be clear at this point. Unless these guys all fall the third round, which maybe that does happen. I got to think this is happening.
See, that's why I thought, like you just said, third round, that's where I thought running back would have been a perfect spot for Seattle to take. Because I think Dameon Pierce would have been a perfect fit in Seattle.
So the Vikings are moving back up. The Colts trade down. The Vikings move in. I'll still be waiting on the details for that trade. I don't have that as of yet, but the Vikings are on the clock. Go ahead, Andrew, finish your thought.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think Dameon Pierce would have been a perfect fit for what Seattle needs. And as far as at the running back position, I really want, if they weren't going to go quarterback here, I would have expected a corner or, a Nakobe Dean, who's still sitting there to fill that Bobby Wagner role. It just look, I get the defense of the Mafe pick. I can roll with that because it's still a linebacker, it's still somewhat of a need, but this really just makes no sense.
All right, Chris, what did the Vikings just move up to get here?
Before
you answer that, actually, I just want to say as a 49ers fan, I'm happy to watch Seattle implode. Okay, now go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily positive here. I mean, when you look at the board, what they kind of have available, they definitely have needs on both sides of the ball. We talked about maybe upgrading at receiver. Maybe they have a guy in particular that they like. I think defense is still where the Vikings still need to significantly improve. Their secondary is still questionable at best. Their secondaries, they added kind, but Harrison Smith's no spring chicken. They have guys in the linebacker position. They're kind of starting to age out. Anthony Barr is a guy who getting paid a lot of money and isn't necessarily part of their future moving forward. So I think this is where they're going to look for. And Nakobe Dean could be a guy that would really fit a great need for the Vikings. A guy that I think would help transition his defense, to the future. But I'm kind of interested to see what they did trade up for.
So I got it right now. So the Colts traded 42 to the Vikings and their number 122, which is the beginning of the fourth round. The Colts got 53, 77, and 192 in this swap of picks here. So the Minnesota Vikings, there is somebody they have to be targeting because they gave up quite a little bit there to try to move up about 11 spots to get back up to this position.
This does feel like it's either Nakobe Dean's time to come off the board or Andrew Booth here. It feels like one of those playmaking defensive players is what they're going to shoot for here, in my opinion.
Does anybody think they could go quarterback here with Kirk Cousins' future kind of questionable for Minnesota going forward?
I mean, yeah, that same question occurred to me as well. So we'll see here.
It is Andrew Booth comes off the board, so they wanted their
Okay.
guy at the secondary position.
Absolutely okay with this pick. Absolutely okay with it.
We talked about this. We said Booth is a cover 3 type of guy, outside perimeter corner. That's what the Vikings do. They're not going to change. Even though Zimmer's gone, they're not going to be drastically changing the system that their defense runs. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. Definitely a team. Patrick Peterson's not an spring chicken either, and a guy they could definitely use upgrades over. So I think this is a good player for them. A guy who's willing to get physical tackle. I think he's going to be a good player for the Vikings, and doesn't have a whole lot of guys to cover Green Bay, so it'll help him adjust kind of to the NFL as well, or Chicago.
Well, and what we love to hear last year was Justin Jefferson. He went to go against Patrick Peterson all the time in practice. I'll tell you what, if he does the same thing to Booth, Booth's going to have to get a hell of a lot better real fast. So maybe, hey, you know what? Maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll help him out quite a bit doing that in practice. We'll have to find out and see. So the Giants are now going to be on the clock. Andrew, what do you think the Giants want to do? They just traded back twice to get to this position.
Yeah, so I think I want to see who's available left here. I see them going back to the offensive line here possibly, but it feels like it might be a reach because I feel like we kind of, your next offensive lineman up is Raymond down from Central Michigan. So this might be another defensive situation here. I could see them going Ajabo from Michigan at linebacker here.
I like Ajabo quite a bit, and that would surprise me, though, just because they just took Thibodeau, that they would go another pass rusher. If they were the Giants. It would be interesting. You hire Brian Dable and you do nothing but load up on the defensive side of the ball. I'd be kind of curious to see. But there's not a big wide receiver that I'm seeing that I would really like in this situation. Both the top running backs are off the board. So the idea of replacing Saquon Barkley in this draft, I think, kind of comes off here. What are you thinking, Chris? You look like you have an idea in your head.
I'm thinking maybe Travis Jones would be a good fit for them, a team that definitely has struggled against the run. But I'm also thinking Dean would be a good fit for them. This team's, Blake Martinez was injured last year. They were atrocious in the linebacker position when he went down. They couldn't stop anybody that versus the run. So those two guys really, would help solidify that middle for them. And I think when you're the New York Giants, look at the Eagles, you look at the Cowboys, look at teams that kind of want to be, push you around. You're going to need to stop their run. So those two guys make a lot of sense to me.
That's actually a really good call. I do like that. I would like that pick a lot. I want to go back to this Vikings. They trade up with the Colts to take Andrew Booth for a second. Could the Colts not have used an Andrew Booth? I know they have Stephon Gilmore, but they could have really been elite in secondary had they made that pick. That's what I think anyway. What do you think, Kevin?
I have to absolutely agree with that. And who couldn't use somebody like Booth on their team? And so the guys that passed on him, especially in the second round, I think are going to be, they're going to be regretting their decision during the season.
Oh, yeah, man. Think they could. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Where is he? Because I'm trying to find him on my thing. Wandale Robinson is the pick for the Giants.
Sucky.
Slot receiver. They take Kadarius Toney part 2 for the second year in a row. There's only one response I can have.
If they want
can you do a double boo, Dan?
I can.
A double boo on?
A triple boo here.
If they wanted a slot receiver, why not Sky Moore?
I don't understand this. I'm looking at my board right here. I don't even see this dude's name on it. So.
Yes, they talked about wanting to trade Kadarius Toney, but they said, okay, it's not going to happen before the draft. You still brought back Sterling Shepard. You have slot receivers, period. The Giants, I just got done giving them all this credit after yesterday, and then they turn around. Did they bring David Gettleman for a pick? They were like, all right, look, part of the deal of you moving on is you have to get one more pick before you're allowed out the door.
Yeah, it's a bit. That one's a shocker right there. That's
the whole board is just like, don't know what to really make of that. Come on, Chris, what do you think?
I hate it. I think that you talked about a guy. The guy's definitely explosive. Guy ran a 4.3 in the combine, 5'8". But I think this is where you're going to see Brian Dable kind of show his true colors. People are really excited about his hiring of the Giants. I was not as excited because I don't forget who he was previous to going to Buffalo and Josh Allen kind of finding lightning in a bottle. This guy hasn't been super successful everywhere he's gone. He was at Alabama. He was in New England. And a lot of those places, he liked kind of guys like this and guys that he didn't necessarily like. The speed fell off with, but the players didn't let him get better. I think he loves the speed and the idea of this guy, but I don't think he's necessarily a great materializer on the field. This doesn't help Daniel Jones get any better. To your point, they already had weapons in place. They had plenty of receivers last year. They couldn't protect anybody. They couldn't throw the ball to the receivers. They couldn't stop anybody on defense. So, yeah, I'm with you where, I mean, they had earned some credit yesterday for what they kind of drafted. Today, they kind of threw it back out the window and, decided to go back to the Gettleman days and previous regimes.
Well, this is the perfect time to do this, Reed. So if you're down on your team's pick, we're trying to cheer you guys up by doing a giveaway with a Jonathan Taylor jersey here. All you got to do is go to Twitter, follow Belly Up Sports, at Belly Up Sports. You have to retweet it. It's tagged at the top as soon as you go to the profile page. Register on Pristine Auction and use the promo code BELLY. That will get you registered into the contest. We're going to select a winner at 8 p.m. on Monday, May 2nd. So we're trying to lift your spirits with a Jonathan Taylor giveaway. So the Browns are finally on the board. This is the team that single-handedly might have ruined the quarterback pay scale moving forward, or at least the way the contract's done anyway, after giving Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract. But with that move, it stands to reason that they have to be involved in a Super Bowl discussion when you have a defense the way they do. They lost Jarvis Landry. They did trade for Amari Cooper. I would think offensive weapons would be the big need here. I don't necessarily have a weapon graded in this spot, but as the Giants just showed me, it might not matter. But what would you guys do if you went with the Browns? Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I think you got to get the wide receivers out there to help, do some things around Amari Cooper. As he's a great receiver, but he's not 22 years old anymore. So we talked about him earlier. George Pickens out of Georgia. Perhaps we still got Sky Moore, Western Michigan, sitting there. And so one of those two guys, I guess it depends on what if they just like talent, I'm going to go Sky Moore. If they want the pedigree, then it's George Pickens out of Georgia. And so I think you just keep on adding some weapons. So Deshaun Watson steps on the field, and then away they go. If he steps on the field at the first game, which we don't know that yet or not.
That's going to be the big question. Now it looks like the county court, as far as that goes, is kind of going away. So it sounds like he's going to be okay. But we
never do know, because Trevor Bauer just got thrown out for 2 whole years. So you just don't know what's going to happen.
That's true. So the Houston Texans just traded up and took the Cleveland Browns pick. So who are the Houston Texans going after? They're trying to get all aggressive here down the second round. They took their tweener corner nickel safety guy and Jalen Petrie in just a couple of picks ago. So if you're the Texans, you've been going defense so far. Who would you just trade up for, Chris?
Who did I trade up for isn't who I think they traded up for. I think they traded up for Willis here. I think that they look at their quarterback situation and see how you want to help them, and a guy that would be kind of waiting in the wings. They didn't have to overpay for him, but a guy that could kind of give them the hope if Davis Mills doesn't pan out for them.
I'll cut off that thought right now. They went wide receiver. They went with John Mechie from Alabama.
Okay.
I'm going to have to check myself because this, again, I guess you get to this point, it's preference picks by teams. But let's see, I had him about 7 receivers more down the board before I get to John Mechie. I thought we'd be more of a fourth round
Dan,
pick.
I don't have him quite that far. I've got him fourth on my board. So I'm kind of there with you on that one.
He's someone that I honestly thought was going to fall to the Pats in like the third round. So third or fourth round. So that's a little bit of a shocker that he's going right now, and that they traded up for him right there too. That's a bit of a shock too.
Yes, you're going to pair him up with Brandon Cooks, and they said, "The hell with Chris. We believe in Davis Mills, and he needs weapons." Damn it! That's why we got to look at John Mechie. Chris, what's your reaction to John Mechie here?
I don't think it's a bad pick. I think they definitely need to go receiver. I mean, other than Brandon Cooks, there's nobody really serviceable to throw the ball to. Their tight ends stink. Their other rest of the receivers stink. So you do need some kind of weapons on the outside. I do like this kid. There's other guys that might like him a little bit more than him, but I think he was one of the, he was the guy until Davis Williams kind of popped off last year. He was the guy to kind of take that next mantle, and so to speak, at Alabama receivers. He was getting a lot of touted as one of the top guys going into the draft last year. Going into the year for this draft, I should say. And I look at a guy who can do a little bit of everything. I think he's definitely best in the slot, but I like his route running as a guy who's going to be a quarterback's best friend. He gets easy separation. He gets open. He's where he's supposed to be. Has more explosiveness people kind of give him credit for. So I don't think it's a bad pick. I just think that, where the Texans are right now, there's other places they could definitely address, especially the offensive line.
Well, it's the one problem with being the Texans that there's nothing they couldn't address, right? And but to hit on that point,
I say that because I think there's other receivers that we kind of are all talking about that we might have a little higher or around that same kind of value that you didn't. There's definitely, I think, some drop off after the linemen after these couple guys go.
Well, no, what I was going to say is leading into that point, usually when you need that many things, you want to build from the inside out, not the outside in. And being that there's receivers that are at least, I don't care if this is your preference here, there's at least still guys in the same tier that you could have went with John Mechie later on. And that's what I wanted to illustrate your point with that right there. But now we have.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. I would have went with Raymond right here if I was you.
We're going to have the Baltimore Ravens here on the clock. As they are getting on the clock, we have to say goodbye to our panel here with Andrew and Kevin. Thank you guys for coming on. Kevin, where can everybody follow you, and what do you have coming up next, man?
Well, you can see Andrew and I Sunday mornings at 11 Eastern on the Belly Up Fantasy Live Dynasty Edition. And then Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I am the host with Vince, who was on here earlier, of the Fantasy Live Baseball Show. And I will have an article out. You can be pretty sure about that. Well, you can be real sure on the fantasy side of things. And you can always find me at Twitter at Kevin62, WILSEA. And so just check me out there.
All right, thank you. Andrew, we can get you, man.
Yep, Real Mr. Mallard right here on Twitter. You can also find the golf show Divots and Pivots at Divots and Pivots on Twitter. And as Kevin said, Sunday mornings, the Belly Up Fantasy Live Dynasty Edition at 11 a.m. Eastern on Tiki Live on Belly Up TV. And then also football related, I will be having bi-weekly rankings for the offseason leading up to all your fantasy drafts. And then once the season starts, I'll be releasing weekly rankings to help you with your start sits. So make sure to check it out.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, we're going to take a quick break, come back on the other side, get our next slate of guests in. Everybody stay tuned to the Belly Up Sports MD's Fantasy Football Show, NFL draft coverage here on Belly Up TV.
The weather is changing, and there's only one way to keep your drink cool this season.